Okay, so I'm Dan Piraro. That's Wayno.
Hello.
Do your friends call you Wayne or Wayno? Friends, family? Who calls you Wayne? Who calls you Wayno?
Um, Most everybody calls me Wayno. Um, yeah, except for like some family members, but my wife calls me both, depends on if I'm being good or not.
All right. No,
So,
I'm actually happy to hear that because I was introduced to you as Wayno because that's your professional name, and you were
oh,
introduced
right,
as a cartoonist. And you've always been Wayno to me. Wayne doesn't sound right. It just does not sound like your name to me. Not exactly. And
right.
so, but I've often wondered, am I the only person in the world that calls you Wayno to your face, or is it? But I'm happy to hear other people do too.
No, no. When I was really young, my grandfather started calling me that, and I think he was disappointed that my parents gave me a name that didn't sound Italian. So that's
Ah,
that's been with me forever.
oh, okay, excellent. That's an even better story. I
I like.
like. I always prefer nicknames that are chosen by other people. When people choose their own nicknames, it's always a little. I don't know.
Yeah,
You know.
I know. We've all heard that or been in known someone like that. Yeah,
Call me the gunslinger. That's my new name. Call me the gunslinger.
the gunslinger. Yeah.
um, anyway, what is your memory? And we met. Oh, the reason we're doing this is because of the anniversary of our first
Published collaboration. Right.
published collaboration. Is what day? It's April what?
April 3rd,
Oh,
2000.
April 3rd. So it was 2 days ago.
Yeah, it was 2 days ago. Yeah, so we're late, but you
Yeah.
know,
Wow. Sorry.
um, yeah. So my
What year?
2009. So
Wow.
it's
That's nice.
15 years. I know. It's our
Wow.
crystal anniversary.
Is that what that is? 15 is crystal?
I looked it up. I didn't know that off the top of
All
my
right.
head.
For those of you who want to send us gifts, crystal objects of some sort, pack them carefully and ship them and send them to us care of King Features in New York City. And
Yeah.
we'll get them eventually. Thanks very much ahead of time for all the crystal. All right. So that was 15 years ago. And what year did we meet? Do you know that?
Yeah, it was just about a year earlier, 2008 on
Okay.
Pi Day on
Hi,
March
Dave.
13th. You were invited to come to Pittsburgh to host a an art event, a live drawing event
Right.
with like non-traditional sort of live drawing models. So it's like, I think we had a pirate theme because there's a photo of the two of us with swords.
And no, it was definitely a pirate theme. There were a lot of people dressed as pirates that night. There were. In fact, I think basically the event is like it's a little bit like an auditorium, and people would go on stage and do these different things and poses, and then everybody in the audience would sketch, and it was
Right.
just like a fun, weird little kind of sketch. Wasn't it called Dr. Sketchy or something like
Dr.
that?
Sketchy's anti-art show. That's what it was. Yeah. And that might still exist. It was like a national thing.
Yeah, it was kind of a franchise of some sort. Not really a franchise, but it was like an
Right.
organization, national organization of people that did this in various cities. I know it was fun and cool, and I was kind of the narrator of the show, or
Right.
something. Yeah.
Right. And I probably I would have been there anyway, but a friend of mine who DJs he got a wedding gig or something. So he asked me to fill in, which was shocking. And I said, what am I going to do? And he said, oh, I'll just give you a laptop with a big disc attached to it. And you just like pick stuff and just let it go. So I was actually DJing. That was my only gig as a DJ ever. Um, and what I recall is at some point when probably before things started, when we were setting up or, um, I introduced myself to you, and I know that not that shortly before that you had a guest cartoonist for a week.
Ah,
And I remember noticing that in the paper, and oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that those kind of things happened. And I was like kind of uncharacteristically pushy when I introduced myself to you and said, next time you take a vacation, you should hire me to fill in for you. And you were very gracious. Um,
Well, yeah, hang on a second. I'm gonna lift my camera up a little bit. I just saw a big box sitting here. Oh, that's better. I feel like I was looking. I feel like I was on the floor looking through the ceiling or something.
Oh yeah, you have that upward
Yeah,
perspective.
it's very up. Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, people, of course, when you're in our business, people come up and say, "Hey, I'd like you. Can you, look at my cartoons? Look at this. Look at that." And so, I'm always friendly and diplomatic and gracious to people, but always also a little skeptical because most
Sure.
of the things that a person gives a person like us is less than ideal. And I mean, sometimes it's great, but then quite often it's amateurish or whatever. So, but I was thrilled when I looked at your cartoons. Like, yeah, this guy is good. Like, I like his jokes. I like the way he draws. He could totally do a guest spot for me. And I started that, I heard, I was not the first, I didn't invent that whole thing. That what many readers, I think, don't realize is how grueling it is to write a new joke, come up with a new joke. You can't get them off the internet. That's not like, people are always like, "Oh, I saw this on the internet. You should use it for a cartoon." No, that's not how it works. You have to, we occasionally will do cartoons that are similar to something that somebody's already posted on the internet, but that's always an accident. We never do that on purpose.
Right.
That's the hard, obviously, this. The hard part of cartooning is coming up with a new idea every day for the rest of your life, year after year after year, month after month. And so at some point I heard of other cartoonists doing this. A couple other cartoonists had done this where they hired somebody else to write and draw a week of cartoons for them while they went on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I had traveled so many times where I had just, and you have to work 4 weeks to get 1 week ahead. I don't know why that math works that way.
Yes.
But it's so hard to get ahead. You got to write 2 jokes and draw 2 jokes every day for X amount of time. And then the day you come back, you got to, so you actually have to have more of a cushion so that when you get back and you're jet lagged and you're unpacking and the whole thing, it's like crazy. So anyway, yeah, I tried it with a friend of mine in New York and it worked great. I really liked his work.
Yeah.
And then when you suggested it, I think after that, I used you. How many times did I give you
Twice. Yeah.
Twice? Yeah, I was thinking twice, but my memory's terrible. There could have been more. And I liked both, and then of course you did a lot of coloring for me for years. You were doing the coloring.
Yeah, about 3 years. Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. I came to visit you when you lived in Brooklyn to study how you colored.
And it was snowing like a mofo one day. I remember that. We took a picture outside with just like covered in snow.
Yeah, my return was delayed a day because of the storm.
Ah.
Yeah, and so I watched you coloring, I watched you drawing, and I was flabbergasted because you didn't, as I recall, again, we're depending on our memories, but I don't think you did a lot of penciling or sketching when you were drawing a panel, maybe just like a few quick guidelines. And I have a memory of you sitting on the couch with ink on the windowsill.
Mm-hmm.
You may have had the Bristol on a clipboard and just kind of like drawing this cartoon completely. And
yeah,
I was flipping out inside.
Of course, by that time I had been doing it. What do you say? This was 2009 or like somewhere around 10 or something, or 11?
Yeah, 2011. So you'd been doing it, what, 25 years, something like that?
Daily for a long time. And so, yeah, I had gotten to a point where I could just make circles and lines and then just go in with ink and turn them into, it's funny. It becomes almost robotic. And it's fun. While it's fun to be that good at something, it also becomes dull.
Okay.
Because it can be so rote. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, I'm not bored with drawing yet.
Well, then you just I start looking for ways to make it interesting for myself, which is how the secret symbols evolved.
Yes.
I was a little bored with doing comics the same way all the time, and so one day I threw in an upside down bird and a little alien, I think maybe, in a bush, in an elaborate garden scene with a lot of crap going on, and I entirely did it just in my own head, just sort of having fun. And then readers started replying and saying, "Hey, what's this? Am I the only person to notice that weird little alien spaceship in the bushes or that upside down bird in the tree?" And then I realized, other people enjoy looking for hidden things as well as I do, And so I started doing it more often. And that again, like I say, it was entirely invented out of just trying to entertain myself, which is basically how I got through school, by just like scribbling and trying to entertain myself while somebody lectured about social studies or economics or something, which is why I don't know anything about the adult world now.
Yeah, I spent some time in the adult world, and I spent a lot of time like at meetings, and my meeting notes were always just like the classroom notes with scribbles and drawings all over them. You remind me of a question I wanted to ask though, because you talked about, doing the same thing over and over daily, and so you wanted to mix it up. Was that a conscious choice when you started doing Bizarro to be a gag a day with no past and no characters?
That was exactly why I started out, because I got bored easily with that kind of thing. And I actually started out with, before I was syndicated, I started out doing a continuous story strip about this female from outer space who gets stranded on Earth and whatever, I mean, it wasn't a particularly original idea, but very quickly I realized how dull it was to draw the same characters over and over and over. And, I just thought, I don't think I can do this for years and years and years. And I had been a bigger fan of single panel comics anyway, because they don't have a place to start. I really like that kind of open-ended, what's happening here? And when you read it, it's a split second in a scene, and you read it and your brain has to do this little gymnastic. That's the fun part of single panel jokes, is when your brain does the little gymnastic to figure out what just happened or what's about to happen that makes this funny. And that little mental trick, I think, is what makes single panel cartoons, to me, more entertaining than a strip situation where it's the same characters all the time.
Yeah, it's a different thing. On the other hand, it would be nice every once in a while to just like do a week where you're just simply reinforcing the characters.
No, it's definitely more challenging to start out with an empty page and no concept of where you should go.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always kind of found that to be freeing, but it can also be, it's definitely intimidating. Because if you've got somewhere to start, you got somewhere to start. It's like, it's a lot easier to build on something than it is to invent something from scratch. But anyway, and it's also more lucrative to have regular characters, which is something I learned the hard way.
That's right. You could have plush toys and action figures.
I could have a jet plane. I could have a Lear jet with my character on the side of it, the way Jim Davis does.
Right.
Jim Davis, the guy that does Garfield, and for those who don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so when it came time for me to try to find somebody to fill in the weekday slots so that I could semi-retire, you were the obvious choice, because we'd already worked together a number of times, and I bought a lot of gags from you. Bizarro's been around for 30 something years now, I guess, 30 something years. And I've bought a lot of gags from people over the years, but it's still only like 5%. 95% of the jokes I had to write. But I don't know, what's 365 times 30 something? It's like, I don't know, 18,000 jokes or something.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a hell of a lot of jokes. So I don't mind telling people that I bought some of those gags, and a bunch of gags. I think I probably bought more gags from you than from anybody else.
I think before I, jumped in to do the dailies every day, that you had bought around 150 gags from me, plus or minus, over the previous years. Yeah,
And you started on January 1st of 2018, right?
correct.
During
Yeah.
the Monday through Saturday full-time thing. And how many jokes have you done since then? I know you know the number.
Well, I'm just looking at my big ass spreadsheet right now, and the ones that are in the queue are going to bring me up to, coincidentally, 2024. So that's
No
not that.
way.
Yeah,
2024 jokes.
yeah.
Oh wow, that's weird.
It is weird.
Weird coincidence.
As I was looking at that, so I'm using my computer screen here for some lighting, so I'm not completely in shadows.
Yeah. Yeah, one way in which Wayno and I are very different is that he's organized. he, he knows where his checkbook is. It's probably balanced. He understands what do you call those things? Those things that you pull up with a lot of numbers and lines and graphs and stuff.
Oh, right, spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I can never even think the name of those things. My wife is into spreadsheets, and she shows me a spreadsheet, and she might as well be showing me some ancient Chinese document written by hand, 11th century, because my brain glosses over. I honestly think I'm a little bit on the spectrum. There's certain things that I can do really well, and other things that I cannot even do at a 4th grade level, and that's one of them. I'm not an organized person. Well, you almost tell by my background. Like, look how organized your background is. Lots of it's like everything, a place for everything and everything in its place. And mine is just looks like, I don't know, kind of looks like something exploded, and these are the things that stuck on the wall and landed on the table.
Is that a plate with a snack behind you there?
Plate with a snack. Oh, over here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a part of my breakfast. It's
Oh,
grapefruit.
peel. Oh, grapefruit.
Grapefruit rinds.
Grapefruit rinds. Okay.
I was considering telling you it was kitten ribs, but that's not funny.
It could have been an art object. Well, I think that organizational stuff comes from all the years I was doing freelance work and having deadlines and having to send a sketch to an art director and just kind of sort of operate on the edges of a real business, the real business world.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helped develop that habit.
Yeah. Another thing I think a lot of people probably don't recognize is that syndicated cartooning is not a path to wealth. Even if it's a path to fame, it takes a lot of papers and you've got to sell a lot of books and you got to have licensing. I mean, it really, a tiny percentage of cartoonists that everyone's heard of are millionaires. The rest of us are just getting by. And a whole lot of people have other jobs, have day jobs and do cartooning on the side. And I did that with Bizarro for 12 years. And you were the same way. You've been doing cartooning and freelance illustration and just anything you can pick up over the years. And I did that for first 12 years of Bizarro. I had a full-time job going to ad agencies and design shops and trying to get freelance illustration, and I did tons of that stuff. And back then I was more organized, but it was not in a digital way. It was like I had a file cabinet, I had files, I had everything on paper. I had a paper calendar. I wrote down all of my stuff by hand. And that's the only way I really know how to operate. And now that doesn't work. It just kind of doesn't work anymore. You sort of have to use a digital calendar and you have to use all these. I'm not very good at that. I get by, but I'm not as good at that as real people are.
Well, I think you're pretty good at everything else you do, though.
Well, that's the thing is that I managed to make a decent living and send my kids to a state college without a college degree. And I figure I totally in a major way beat the odds. It doesn't matter that I didn't get rich. I totally beat the odds. In fact, I always thought getting rich get this, I was afraid I would get rich. How's that for stupid?
That's going to change me.
I was afraid it would ruin my children. I just thought this will ruin, I know so many people that were raised wealthy and they're not all balanced. And they're not all crazy either, but there's I have personally seen wealth ruin people's lives, especially people that are raised with it. So I was afraid that, so I went out of my way not to, not to.
Good on you.
I did it for my kids.
That's noble.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. And have they paid me back? No. No, I'm still close to my kids, I'm happy to say. What else do we want to say to readers right now? Got any other things you want to?
Just, thanks for reading and following everything we do everywhere, all the stuff we throw out on our blog and newsletters, and Coyote Cowboy. Now, speaking of not drawing repeating characters.
Well, yeah,
into it, didn't you?
I'll tell you, I resisted this graphic novel for just that reason. I just thought, I don't want to get into a project that big, but the story just kept coming back and back and back on me. And I had this really strong muse voice in the back of my mind saying, just look at it, just read it, just read it and see. Because I'd written aspects of it, and then and then I got inspired to do it, and now I'm stuck with it. I enjoy it. It's actually not as boring as I thought it would be, because it's like directing a movie. It's like doing an elaborate illustration, not a sketch, an elaborate illustration every 5 seconds for a long TV series that lasts for 3 years. Like that's really the pace of work. It just takes forever. Anyway, I'll publish it as a book when it's done or something. I hope. I don't know if I live that long. God only knows, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. It's fun.
All right. Well,
it's been fun catching up.
Definitely.
So like we chat via email and stuff and send sketches back and forth all week long, every week for
multiple times per day
now. But we don't do this like just chatting face-to-face thing very often. Like once a year, we'll do something like this. So I think it might be fun to do this and post it online every now and then.
Good idea.
We'll talk to you soon. Adios.
Ciao.